And we're back here once again with another episode of the MSK show. And this is going to be episode 450. So I hope you guys had a great day and I hope you guys have a great rest of your week that is ahead of you. And in this episode of the MSK show, I am going to be having a conversation with Garrett K. Jones. And this is going to be his first appearance on the show. We basically got a chance to hook up this show for you guys because I had Kat on from Feast of Fandoms, I think like a week or two ago. And I was asking her, was anybody else on like one of her shows that kind of talks about the same similar stuff that we do want to come on the shows for, like, you know, you come on for one-on-ones or panel shows. I don't really care, just as long as we kind of can coordinate everyone's schedule, because like for people who don't really ever understand, it's not about the shows that really actually get people to ever get quote unquote burnt out. It's coordinating time zones. Most people you're going to end up doing this with are going to be on the East Coast. Now, to be fair, as we all know, that's the worst part of the world. The East Coast is worse. West Coast is better, you know, but most people are going to be CST or EST. So like hypothetically, this is just an example, guys. So if I'm doing a show with someone and I'm saying it's going to start at 5 p.m. PST, then it starts at 8 o'clock for most people I have here on the show. So I got to let them know it's like, hey, I'm not trying to keep you later, but I can't start a show at like 4 o'clock because obviously I'm at work and, you know, I'm not that kind of black guy where I don't work and I just do drugs. That's not that kind of thing we do here, actually, you know. So just want to let people know that it's like when you do this kind of things, when someone says it's easy, it's like, okay, if it's easy, why don't you show me how it's done, boy? Just show me all the new tricks, you know, apparently, because apparently scheduling guests is easy, doing panel shows is easy, because you just turn on a mic and you just get a bunch of viewers. That's what I heard from people who like literally have no presence in doing this at all. And keep in mind, I'm not saying this is really hard, but you know, when someone says it's easy, it's like, dude, all you do is like tweet on Twitter. That's it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's easier tweeting than it is to actually make the content itself, because, you know, when someone is like tweeting constantly, it's one of those things that they constantly do where they're like, man, I would do this, that, and the third if I was in that position. It's like, no, you wouldn't, because you don't have any money. You know, it's crazy all these grandiose things someone can come up with in a tweet and then not come to realize, wait a minute, if I was in that position and doing that for hours, 5 days a week, I would actually crumble. But, you know, never tends to happen with people who are like that. So, Garrett, I'm going to have him go over his origin story, and then we'll start covering, you know, other things he wants to actually talk about. So that way, when, you know, he makes another appearance on the show later on down the road, we don't have to do that again, because I could just be like, hey, Garrett made his first appearance on this episode right here. And then we could just go from there, because there's a lot of things going on in the world, actually. You know, Gavin Newsom is basically saying that, you know, he understands how black people feel and what they go through, which was one of the funniest things ever, in my own personal opinion, actually. Whenever you just hear a politician going like, yeah, I know exactly what you're going through, it's like, all right, sure you do. It's almost as if like they just say things that sound like they're really awesome to hear in the moment, and then come to find out they're just speaking out of their ass. But yeah, we'll start with you. How was your life growing up, actually?
Um, I would like to say that my life was more or less comfortable.
Mhm.
I'm mostly from the Central Valley of California, and grew up in the suburbs. But I did spend a formative part of my childhood in Paradise Valley, which is part of the Phoenix area. And so I like to say that I beat the burnout literally, just simply because it gets really freaking hot in Phoenix. I mean, it's only like nice and like 70 degrees like 1 week in December. The rest of the time, it's you feel like you're in a broiler at Burger King. Um, but yeah, I mostly grew up here in Central California. I'm about 45 minutes south of Fresno. And so the Central Valley was kind of my playground. I grew up being able to be, 2 hours from the coast, 2 hours from the mountains, 4 hours from the Bay Area or Southern California. So it's kind of really in the middle of everywhere. And it was just fun growing up here. I had a good group of friends, and I got involved with a lot of creative stuff as a kid,
Mhm.
between doing music and theater. And ever since I was a kid, I was writing stories and coming up with these adventures. And I was one of those kids, like, I didn't have any problem playing by myself. Like, if I had action figures, I was good to go. If I had some kind of action play set that I could wear or something, or I would make costumes, I would go and do that. Like, I remember, like, the day after I graduated kindergarten, I threw on a backpack with a vacuum hose, and I went door to door asking if people had ghosts that I could bust. Um, yeah, that's the kind of thing I would do. So I was that creative kid, and so that yeah, that's kind of just how I got my start going into what I'm doing now. I'm a writer by trade, and then as far as the podcasting that I do, that kind of kicked off because back in 2019, I was having a conversation with my dad and my brother. My brother, who at the time was working as a personal trainer, made the statement that writing doesn't require a whole lot of work. And my comment to him was, "Dude, you are a glorified gym rat." So um, I love my brother, but sometimes he doesn't understand how much work goes into some of the stuff that we do, whether it's creating podcasts or writing stories or whatever it is that we are working on.
Yeah, I actually feel like a lot of people just don't really get what really goes into all this stuff. Actually, it feels like they kind of see like the end product, and then they're going like, okay, that must have been super easy to just like put on. Actually, you know.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I have a lot of people who've made that statement, and then I'm like, well, you try writing a book, and I encourage them to actually do it, and they're like, no, 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 that's not for me. And then it's like, well, why not? It's like, well, because it's too hard. Wait a minute, I thought you said it was easy. Um, and so, I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm constantly writing stuff from whether it's scripting stuff for podcasts or scripting or writing stuff for my books, whatever it is. I'm constantly in that creative mode. So it's just something I do naturally. So for me, at this point in my life, it feels like I'm able to do it really easily. But there are moments where it does feel a lot more challenging.
And what are those challenges typically? Are they pretty much like you hit a creative block in one of your ideas and you feel like you can't expand upon it until another kind of thing you have comes into fruition so you can get over that hump?
Sometimes, sometimes it is like, so. For example, back in 2012, um, I like, it had been a couple of years since I had finished writing anything, um, and I wanted to get back into it. And so after a couple of years, it's just like any skill. If you don't use it, you lose it. And so what ended up happening was, um, I had gone for so long without writing that the creative flow had just kind of left me, and I had to jump start back into it. And then in 2013, I started a master's program online through Liberty University back east. And one of the things I found about myself is that I am never more creative than when I am in some kind of educational setting, whether it's being a teacher or working in education or if it's being a student. Because
Mm.
whatever happens, it jumpstarts that creativity for me, and I just start kind of locking into it. Um, and so I during that phase of working on my master's program, I ended up publishing first my first book, and I edited through my second, wrote my third, and edited that one. And then it was shortly after that I started just continuing on through my series. And so between 2015 and 2018, so in that 3 year span, I put out 4 books.
So, what were the primary genres that you focused on? Was it like fantasy? Was it like romance? You know?
It's mostly sword and sorcery fantasy,
Mm.
your typical medieval epic fantasy. Um, and I grew up with it. Like, I grew up watching the Rankin and Bass 1970s Hobbit film. Love that. I grew up on. I didn't like the singing so much. That kind of got boring. but the action and Smaug was just awesome. There's another cartoon from the '80s that I watched called Flight of Dragons with John Ritter, and I really enjoyed that story as well. So anything that involved dragons was great. I grew up on Star Wars, classic, pre digital, pre re-releases and stuff like that. And so, hey, Janae, she just popped up.
Is that your wife?
Singing was great, but when you're 4 or 5, it's kind of boring.
Is that your
Um,
wife?
no, no, no. Janae is
Oh,
one of my co-hosts. She's
oh,
on the Geek Gauntlet, and then we do another podcast called
okay.
Snack a
Because I wanted to ask you. Okay, so since you're a sci-fi like fantasy guy, how do you feel about something like Dune? 'Cause I know Dune is very hit or miss with a lot of people. It is really popular, but it tends to be one of those it's like coffee. It's like an acquired taste, though. You got to be in the mood for that kind of storytelling.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. I'm very picky about what sci-fi I get into. Star Wars is definitely a big thing because I grew up with it.
Mhm.
My first memory, and I've shared this on War of the Stars. My first memory is seeing Return of the Jedi in theaters in 1983. I was a little over a year old.
Mhm.
Um, the As far as Dune, I didn't get into seeing anything with Dune until just the last few years. I didn't know anything about it. Like I knew about the sandworms. I knew that it dealt with Arrakis and the spice and
Yeah,
stuff like
yeah.
that. But I never read the books. My dad read it. He loved it. He thought it was great. And my dad was the one who actually got me into sci-fi. Like I would sit down and watch old Buck Rogers episodes with him. I grew up watching Twilight Zone and Outer Limits with him, classic stuff. Um, and so getting into Dune was kind of a newer thing for me. And as a kid, I didn't have an appreciation for what was in the text or what was in the story because it's a very dense book. It's a very dense series. Um, but as a fan of film and movies, I loved it. I didn't see any of the stuff that came before. I probably should go back and rewatch the one with Kyle MacLachlan and Patrick Stewart because
Mhm.
it did set a precedent that the film or that the movie could be done. But I didn't watch any of it until the one that came out in what was it 2021. And so I've seen both of them now. Uh, I really enjoy the effects and the storyline. It's really cool.
So you're excited for Dune Part 3 coming out? I think it's coming out this year, the same time as
I
Avengers
hope it's
Doomsday.
coming out this year. It would be nice. Yeah, I would. I do want to see it. I'm not because I haven't read the books. I don't know what's involved with the story, so I
Mhm.
get the joy of going in with a blank slate. Although people keep telling
Apparently,
me
it's supposed to come out the same time as Avengers Doomsday, like the same day. It's like there's no way they do that. It has to get pushed. Something's gonna give there. Doomsday's
we'll
not moving.
we'll see. I mean, I don't know. It's because at this point, I'm kind of torn between what movies I want. Like I've become a little bit more selective about when I want to go to the theater.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think a lot of people have
Um,
actually.
because it used to be like up until a couple of years ago, um, I like any time like I would set my calendar and I would say, okay, these are the movies I need to see throughout the course of this year. I
Mhm.
want to go see them, and I would hit those movies, especially during the summertime. And having worked in movie theaters, it was nice because then you get a sense of what the calendar is really going to look like. Um, and so I enjoy being able to go see movies in theaters, even if I'm by myself. I don't care if I have other people with me or not. I will go and see a movie.
Same thing with me too. Like, I don't get why people thought it was weird if people went and watched movies by themselves. Actually, I mean, keep in mind, yeah, having a crowd does make it a little bit more lively with certain movies, but
Yeah,
sometimes crowds can be annoying. I remember damn, like remember when the Josh Whedon Justice League came out? That
yeah,
was one of the most annoying times I went to a movie theater. I went opening Thursday night. People, it was a packed crowd because obviously that was a different time period and everything. It was Justice League, obviously,
yeah, yeah,
and people were, my God, people were laughing at things that weren't even jokes. Like a character would say, like Batman. This one guy would just laugh repeatedly, retarded throughout the entirety of the screening. There's people that are just laughing at jokes that aren't even jokes. They're just having normal dialogue. I'm like, oh my God.
and
Like,
more than likely, they're probably laughing at someone that they're something their buddy was saying, and they're
yeah.
just being way too loud about it. Yeah, I remember I went to a back in the when I was in high school. Me and a buddy of mine, we went to a movie theater. and I cannot remember for the life of me what we're seeing. I want to say it was an Adam Sandler movie, but it could have been one of the Austin Powers movies. I don't remember. And we were stuck up in like the second or third row from the screen, just because it was so packed. And um, there was this drunk guy, like a few rows back, and he was just yammering on and yammering on. And the guy right behind me is like, "Dude, just shut the up." And the drunk guy got up and he's like, "Oh, you want to make me? You want to be a tough guy?" Like he's pushing off the usher and stuff like that. And the guy behind us just gets up and he was like 3 times the dude's size and just laid him out. And I'm like, I just turned to my buddy. I'm like, "Hey, you want to go?" He's like, "Nope, I paid money for these tickets." I'm like, "Okay, but if we get hit, I kind of want to remember the movie."
So, well, I wanted to go back to what you said earlier about Star Wars. So, like with Star Wars in the original trilogy, how do you look back on it now compared to then? Do you think it holds up overall?
Um, I think a lot of the practical effects hold up.
Hmm.
If we're talking just strictly effects, yeah, a lot of it holds up.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, obviously, you can see its age, especially with the original film coming up on being 50 years old. But the 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 premise of it, the story it's time tested. I mean, if you go back and you look at the tropes of it, um, and the hero's journey, it essentially it is the story of King Arthur. And Darth Vader would be Mordred, and at least I think that would be the right.
You can tell it was really influenced by westerns at the time too.
Well, it was influenced by westerns, but there was also a lot of heavy influence by Akira Kurosawa, who was a legendary Japanese filmmaker, like
Mm.
Seven Samurai and stuff
Mhm.
like that. And, be, and just the the way that Lucas put it together, it looked like some of the old, sci-fi serials that he would have watched as a kid.
Yeah.
And so kinds of stuff when he was a kid, who was roughly the same age. Um, I have an appreciation for it. Um, with regards to the prequels do hold up story-wise a little bit better now because we've had what 7 seasons, 8 seasons of the Clone Wars, and then 3 seasons of the Bad Batch
Mhm.
to kind of fill in some gaps between the films and all that fills in the canon a little bit better. But I'll be honest, like I was in high school when the Phantom Menace came out the theaters. It was the first new Star Wars movie since 1983, and I went opening night to go see it. Um,
What was
and
the vibe of your theater crowd? Because you know how
oh,
people say like my theater has it because every crowd's gonna be different with people. How was your
it
theater
was
experience?
it was energetic. Like the main theater that was playing it, it was in our mall. The entry was in the food court,
Mhm.
and the line coming out of the theater to get into the film just for the showing that we were going to, which
Mhm.
our showing was like a 7:45 showing or something like that. It was at the ticket taker booth, which was up the ramp by the actual
Mhm.
auditoriums,
Yeah.
and it came all the way down through the concessions area, past the ticket booth, into the food court, and it started wrapping around the food court because that's how many people bought tickets for opening night. And this is before you could pre-sale anything. People were buying their tickets that evening
Mhm.
because they didn't go because you could have gotten tickets early, like at least a week early, but most people didn't do that. This was before all the big pre-sales and all the internet, traffic and stuff like that. And but it was so cool. Everyone was excited because nobody had any idea what was going to happen. There had been no spoilers because I mean our internet was dial up. You know, it
Yeah.
was it was it was so much fun. And I went into it with some preconceived notions because of what I grew up with and with the legends and playing the West End role playing game with some friends in high school. And I had like the first teaser trailer that we saw where we saw Darth Maul fighting and we saw that double bladed lightsaber. my first thought was there's a particular character in the Legends canon named Exar Kun who wielded the first double-ended lightsaber,
Mhm.
and so that was my first thought. I'm like, this is that character. No, it was a different character, and it was Darth Maul, and Darth Maul was cool and epic and got completely shortchanged on screen. Um,
I just want to only imagine that moment in Phantom Menace where Liam Neeson's character Qui-Gon Jinn is like, "This is my my Padawan apprentice Obi-Wan Kenobi." You imagine the crowd just were going
oh,
insane at
dude,
that
like
moment.
people were like, "Whoa!" Like it was huge. Like there was so much energy behind this,
Mhm.
and the thing I loved about it was that it didn't matter where you were coming from. Everybody in this room, everybody in this auditorium at this screening were fans of Star Wars because they grew up with it. They loved it. They were probably kids when the original trilogy started coming out and being released, or they were kids after it came out on VHS. Whatever the experience was,
Mhm.
you had people who were introducing their families to it, who were introducing, little kids to it. It was fantastic. Now, I will say I was not a fan of Jar Jar Binks just because he was a little too goofy, and we didn't really see a whole lot of that in the original trilogy. Don't get me wrong, the some of the stuff with the Ewoks does get a little goofy, but you
Not an
know,
Ewoks enjoyer.
but it wasn't over the top like it was with Jar Jar. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, Ahmad Best, who acted the character, who did the voice for the character and did all the mocap, unfortunately, he was on the receiving end of a lot of negativity. And I don't like, just because you don't like a character doesn't mean you need to hate on the actor. The same thing that happened with the Last Jedi and the actress who played Rose Tico. She's a great actress. I think she did a great job with the role that she was given and the direction that she was given. Is the character obnoxious? Yes, but I mean, I mean, think about Joffrey Baratheon on Game of Thrones. The actor who played him got so much hatred, so much vitriol from people because they associated him with the character, and all he was doing was just doing a really good performance.
Mhm.
Um, and so, like, but regardless of that, like, I have come to appreciate some of the stuff that is going on in the film. Like, I didn't like all the political stuff. It was very boring for me. Like, there's a whole section of the film. It's mostly during the pod racing, but I can actually fall asleep at the beginning of the pod racing, wake up, and miss absolutely nothing. Like
Yeah.
I'll do that even now because I've just seen it so many times. But going back and rewatching all the political stuff, I you can start seeing how things are laying out, the political traps, the discourse, all
Mhm.
of that eventually culminates at the end of Revenge of the Sith, and seeing how it just kind of deteriorates the galaxy into the Empire. And
So
so,
for yeah.
go ahead.
So, no, so for me, when it comes to the prequel movies, so when I grew up with Star Wars, it didn't really happen the same way that people did. I thought Star Wars was for legitimately. I thought Star Wars was for a bunch of losers and nerds. So it would, and what's crazy is I don't think a lot of people actually give Clone Wars enough credit because after the prequel movies were done, the Clone Wars was on what Toonami for years actually,
Yeah,
unless you were playing the video games or you actually were reading books. That was the only thing visually on television was just that. So like, people should actually credit that a lot more for keeping people more interested in that. So imagine like you didn't grow up with the movies at all because you couldn't afford them, you couldn't watch them on cable, and the Clone Wars were just random episodes popping up on like those Saturday morning cartoon blocks. Like that
yeah,
might have got someone into Star Wars just right there, which is the Clone Wars. I think for me, when it comes to the prequels, because I actually watched The Last Jedi in theaters first. That was my first Star Wars movie, and that was not good. So then I did a movie project a long time ago where I watched them. I watched everything from the beginning all the way. I actually rewatched The Last Jedi. So I was like, maybe I had a bad day. Maybe I didn't give it its fair shake. No, those movies are not good. So I did my due diligence of rewatching it just to give it that fair shake. I think the original trilogy, I think it is actually very good. I understand why people hold it up as like one of the best trilogies ever. I could understand because like there's a lot of kids these days are like, well, the first one's overrated. And it's like, well, I wouldn't really find the first one overrated. Like it's actually a hard skill to lay out world because you know this too. Because I used to write. Because the reason why I asked you about writing because I used to write by myself back in the day too. A lot
yeah,
of people don't get this though. when you do world building and writing, it's very hard to balance out that as being interesting with the characters that are supposed to be interesting as well.
Yeah.
The first movie, which is called Star Wars, but he called it New Hope later on. Good old George. What I really enjoyed about watching that movie was that he effectively balanced out building a world where you didn't need to know like all the intricate details of the universe to like the characters you were getting. That's an actual skill, people. That's really hard to do.
Yeah, it is. Like I love doing the world building. Obviously, my books are epic fantasy, so there's a lot of world building involved, and it like it is incredibly fun to be able to put that together. I mean, obviously,
Mhm.
from a physics perspective, you're not going to find planets um, that are macrocosms of an entire ecosystem. You're not going to find. I mean, obviously Mars is pretty much all desert at this point because there's no
Mhm.
moisture, there's no precipitation.
Are you sure
But
there's no Ewoks up there just chilling?
probably
Just
not. Probably not. But you're not going to find. A, you're not going to find a planet that is going to be all forest or all swamp or
Mhm.
that's just not. I mean, maybe all swamp because especially if it's a primordial planet and stuff like
Mhm.
that. But like for the most part, you're going to have a lot of variation across planetary systems, and you see that in a lot of other sci-fi as well. Um, so when you get you know, when you so for me, like looking at the environments that George Lucas put together, that was really pivotal for me because like you look at Tatooine and it's a desert planet. So when you think and having grown up in Arizona where everything is dry and flat and
Oh, I know the
arid and
feeling.
hot, like
Yeah.
I I gravitated to Luke Skywalker because I'm like, I understand that environment. I understand that water is incredibly an important resource. You look
Oh, she
at
had this question for you,
hmm,
actually. She said, "Sure, anyone." She was answering this to that person that said it was easy. She said,
yeah,
"Sure,
yeah,
anyone can write, but making something that feels." She said, "Sure, anyone can write, but making something that feels real, something that actually catches on with a reader base, is a very different tier of writing."
oh yeah, 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 absolutely. Um, and it's fun to play around with the environments that you're building. Like when I'm drafting a story and I'm trying to create the world that my characters are inhabiting, I try like obviously I want to invoke all the sensory detail as much as I possibly can, but I also want to be as cognizant of where these characters are growing up and what their life is like. So, for example, in my first book, I introduce a particular environment. You don't really get to see it until the end of or like the last third of the book, but it's called the Three Sands Desert, and it's called that because this desert has three different colors of sand, and most people don't get past the first layer of it. The first, so like at the very core of it is this white sand area that nobody's really ever seen. You get to explore it in the book, but beyond that is a stretch of is the ring of black sand that surrounds it, and then beyond that, at the borders and edges of the desert, is this golden yellow sand. And these sands have magical properties. So, like if you are trying to cross into the desert during daylight hours, that golden sand is going to generate an inferno level heat, and you are just incinerated the moment you start walking across those granules. Um, Whereas the black sand um, is essentially like if you walk across it at nighttime, anybody who died on that sand raises up as kind of like a reanimated corpse. Not
Because I
not
know.
exact. Hmm?
Because I know you said you wrote 4 books and you published 4 books. So for any like beginning first time authors, let's just say, would you recommend them actually hiring an editor?
That's a good question. If you are capable of doing editing yourself, you can get away with it. I do a lot of the editing myself just because I can't afford an editor. Editors can get pricey.
Oh yeah.
Um, the other thing is But if you're wanting someone to review what you're writing and give you feedback, you can find editors that are not terribly expensive, especially if you know someone who's really good at doing it and you work out an arrangement ahead of time.
I'm
Or
cheap.
for
I'm giving someone $20 an hour. That's all you're getting.
hey, that's better than that's better than a lot of people get. Um, because I did editing on Upwork for a project, and like they only wanted to give me like $5 for the entire thing, and I'm like, dude, you're having me edit like 10 pages. If I charged you even a penny per word, that would be way more than $5.
That's wait a minute. Whoa. $5 for 10 pages.
Uh-huh.
These pages could have like 200 words minimum.
Easily. And here's the best part. Here's the best part is that what they sent me was a complete ripoff of Harry Potter. Like not even a page in, and they dispensed with any of the fake names, and they went straight for Harry, Ron, and Hermione. I'm like, screw this. And I had to walk away from it. I said I'm canceling the contract. I'm done. I said I don't want to be involved with whatever you're trying to do. I will not be a party to stealing and plagiarism. So have fun finding someone who will work with you.
God, $5 for 10 pages. That is
and Upwork
crazy.
would have taken their fair share, their pound of flesh out of it way faster, and I would have gotten less than half of that.
That like this is why I always tell people when it comes to these like grandiose illusions they have of like what's the word? Oh my goodness, it's the word everyone wants to be an author. Yeah, like they want to be publicized. They want it to be under like a firm and whatever. It's like one of these things where everything I've heard about it is like it's like all a bunch of horror stories. Honestly,
Well, so here's the thing: is that I wanna be clear that I am not a when I say I'm a published author, I am not traditionally published. I haven't gone through the process of getting an agent who has pitched my book to a publishing house and gotten it mass produced and with professional editing and all that. I am an indie author, which means I take care because this is my craft. This is what I do. I do a lot of the editing myself. I will have other people read it. I will get feedback from them. I will get some notes and other things, but I will go through with a fine tooth comb and make sure that as much of it is edited as possible. In fact, I'm in the process of working on book 6 in my series. I finished the writing of it back at the end of August last year. I started the first round of edits, which are the content or substantive edits, and that's basically where you're carving out whole chunks and you're getting rid of stuff, you're adding stuff in, you're moving things around. Like I moved entire chapters from like the beginning to the end of the book in the manuscript.
Yeah, because I wanted to ask you, how do you think you've improved from your first book to your fourth one? Because you said you're going on a fifth one very soon.
Well, the fifth one's already out. The sixth one is the one I'm working on now.
Okay.
Yeah. So over the course of the last 10, 11 years since I've been publishing, my skill set has gotten better as far as the writing. I've been able to write more effectively. One of the things I always try to do is I always try to write actively. So getting rid of passive verbs, getting rid of passive language within the text, and trying to make it flow as much as I possibly can. Using stronger word choices to get the same point across with using fewer words. And because I have a tendency when I'm writing, writing is dumping sand into the box. Editing is carving it out to make the sandcastle. When I'm in the writing phase, I just write, and so whatever comes out of my brain, whatever comes out of my mouth, that's what goes onto the paper. And so when I go back, so like my writing process is this: I handwrite most of my chapters, or if not all of them. Once I've got that chapter handwritten, I then transpose it onto my computer and into a Word document, and then I move on to the next chapter. And then after I've gotten that all done, then I go back and I start going through the content edits and moving things around, and I'm carving stuff out and I'm simplifying and using those stronger word choices. Once that is done, I kind of like what I'm doing right now. I'm just letting it sit, and I'm working on other projects. But I'm getting ready here in hopefully in the next 6 months or so to start going through the next line of edits. And the next line of edits is going to be your line editing. This is where you're going chapter by chapter, page by page, and you're going through and you're really tightening up what you're writing. You're really tightening up the language. You're going through, and this is where if you see any plot holes or you have any plot threads that haven't fully landed yet, you're adding in those details. You're adding in that bit of content to just kind of add texture and color to the world and to the characters and their decisions. And you're really making sure that the motivations and dialogue match up with what you've established in your own headcanon.
Yeah, because
Um,
I think with indie authors, the biggest criticism of like indie authors in general is pacing and dialogue tends to be something that always makes people dip. Like you'll read like reviews of indie books, and a lot of common ones will be like, "Yeah, I kind of dipped because the pacing and dialogue just got a little mundane for me, got a little boring." That's like a common theme. I was like, "God damn!" That some of these reviews are like, "That's it. There's two sentences, dialogue
you're
and pacing was just boring."
and it really depends on the book. I know because I've encountered mainstream published books that I've read, and they don't catch me. I'm one of those readers that if now it's harder for me to do this when I'm listening to an audiobook, for example, which
Right.
I tend to listen to more audiobooks than I do reading paperbacks. But I'm one of those readers that if I'm not caught by the end of the first chapter, I will put a book down. That's one of my closest friends. I call him my Tolkien scholar because like he will find any way of inserting the Hobbit or Lord of the Rings in, or the Silmarillion
Mhm.
into a conversation. He'll find any way to do it, and he will, and he just knows so much about it. He knows way more than I do, and while I've read The Hobbit a couple of times, I have only gotten through the first chapter of the Lord of the Rings, and I've put the book down. Like I could not finish Fellowship because
Mhm.
the first chapter was so tedious for me. Um, and uh, so I struggle with that. So when I listen to audiobooks, it's a little bit harder for me to put it down because I've got someone reading it to me. I hear the voice, I hear the cadence, I'm hearing the variations for the different characters,
Mhm.
and that really kind of draws me in because I grew up listening to old time radio shows on AM radio, and so because of that, I'm able to kind of connect with the story a little bit more. But I listened to an audiobook a couple years ago. It was this epic space opera type. It wasn't even space opera, but it was just this. I don't even know how to describe it, but it was so boring. Like I made it through it, but it was a slog, and it was only like an 11-hour book. Like I've listened to more hours of H.P. Lovecraft, and his stuff is repetitive. And that one book was more of a slog than anything else I've ever listened to.
So what about someone like Brian or Brandon Sanderson? What about someone like him? Will he be in your cup of tea?
Normally, I'd say yes, but what's funny is I don't read a whole lot of fantasy when I'm in
Mm,
that writing mode. I've been reading a lot more fantasy lately,
right.
just because I'm not in that writing phase. I've actually been working on something else that's a completely different genre. But for the most part, I I listen to or I will read a lot of science fiction or a lot of
Mhm.
action thriller or a lot of suspense. I'm a big fan of the classics, so I grew up listening to. I grew up reading a lot of Sherlock Holmes and Mark Twain and stuff like that. So I like listening to that kind of stuff. Um, and it's only been the last few years that I've started getting into other mainstream authors. Like I'm not a big fan of James Patterson, but Audible has these series of audiobooks done by him, and they're co-authored by another writer, and they're done with a full cast of characters, full cast of actors. And so I've really enjoyed listening to some of those stories because they're 3 or 4 hours long, maybe 6 at the most, and they're great because they've got that full cast. You got the sound, the Foley mixing, and the sound effects, and so you get it feels very much like listening to those old timey radio shows that I used to listen to growing up. And so it just I think for me, like I would like to get into Brandon Sanderson, but he's one of those writers that he's got so many books, and I don't know where to start. And because unfortunately, a lot of readers will judge a book by its cover. And one of the things that I have a habit of doing is I'll be like, oh, that book looks really cool. Let me take a look. And then I find out it's like book 18 of 35.
I hate, yeah.
Who's got time for this?
Yeah, happens all the time. Like when I'll watch like comic book videos of people, and then they're like, "Man, try out this comic book from this specific character, this series after this event." And in comic books, it's like, okay, if it's a volume 1 after something, I can at least try it. That book that this guy recommended, and I love this guy too. This guy's pretty cool. That was volume 2. I need the volume 1. I need to know the I'm that kind of person. I used to be able to be a guy where I could just start randomly in a movie series, also like movie 5, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I stopped doing that years ago. My brain is wired. I need to be at that beginning.
Yeah,
and I'll just follow the journey. I gotta follow the journey.
That's one of the reasons why I had such a difficult time getting into anime, is because most of the time anime will, whatever the series is, has a tendency of throwing you into what's called in media res, where you're in the middle of everything, and it starts off, and you have to watch like 5 or 6 or 7 or 20 episodes before you even get the backstory to what happened way before episode 1, and it drives me absolutely bonkers. That's why like I can't get into Naruto, I can't get into Dragon Ball Z, because there's so much content for me to have to filter, and I don't want to start into it. Thankfully, and this is a shout out to my co-host Janae, who's on the Geek Gauntlet, but she and I have been co-hosting a series of episodes for Feast of Fandoms called Snackame, where we eat snacks, we talk anime. We actually have a new episode coming up this coming Friday, where we're going to be talking about the show Frieren, on which you can find on Hulu, Netflix, I think Crunchyroll probably. And so a lot of the anime that we've been watching are shows that she has recommended because she's watched through it or she's watched most of it, and she's saying, "Hey, I think you'll like this." And some of them have been hits for me. There's one called Erased that is on Hulu, and if not for anything else, beyond just great writing and a great story that really captured my attention, the theme song, the opening theme song, was just fantastic. I loved it, and I for like months I was playing it on YouTube just because I love that song so much. And so and there's things that I've shared with her. I'm like, hey, let's try watching this, and a lot of the things that I've recommended that I thought looked cool turned out to be real duds. And then, but there's also been things that she's recommended that I just didn't care for, just because it was not my cup of tea.
You know, I'm one of those guys where I am that shonen, jump guy. It's just that's who I am. I always tell people like to have your background and perspective where they don't like bigger animes like that. I always just say I always try out like animes that are 13, 26 episodes. That was the best part about me growing up with anime, is like you had animes that were like super long, but there were also ones that came out that are some of my favorite ones ever, like Samurai Champloo. That's only 26 episodes. Samurai 7, that's only 26 episodes. S Cryad, which is essentially like Naruto if it were more mature, essentially only 26 episodes. Like I think the problem with anime is a lot of the fans are kind of, they don't shower. They're nerds. That's already 2 red flags there. The other thing would be, I think they always tell people it's the best thing ever. And I think people need to stop doing that, because that puts some like false sense of expectation. Yeah. Right. And then when someone is expecting like best thing ever, they walk into it going, meh. It's like, then now they're soured on their experience on what you recommend. That's why I don't really like recommend stuff to people anymore, because then they would blame me. They would be like, well, I didn't like it and you told me. I was like, well, you know what? Figure it out on your own. Apparently, recommendations don't work for me. I'm old at this point, you know. But no, I love
Yeah.
anime. I love manga. I love all this stuff. I wish I could be more of a novel reader, but I am someone where if it's not a picture in front of me, it's hard. It's hard to visualize and all that stuff. I need the world kind of laid out in front of me already.
Yeah. I like what's funny is because like back in the 80s, I had no idea what anime was. And so
Mhm.
like one of the first anime that I was ever introduced to, surprise, surprise, was um was actually Transformers.
Mhm.
Transformers started off as an anime, and then we kind of took it over and here in the United States we made it better. Um and then but then I was also introduced to Voltron, and I loved Voltron when they
I thought
ported it
Voltron was
over to the United
amazing.
States.
Yeah, that Voltron was really cool. Yeah.
And to this day, like I remember as a kid, I had because Playmates produced the toys, and I had the blue, red, yellow, and green lions, but I didn't have the full size black lion. Um,
Yeah, me
so
neither. We were too poor. I just had the yellow lion. For some reason, I just had that one. That's the one I
yeah,
had.
and I had the figures that came with them. And then like, but what's weird is at some point I got a version of the black lion, but it was part of this like die-cast set, and so my lions didn't really fit with it at all. But because of the kind of person that I was growing up with, playing with my action figures, I made it into what I could work with. And so I couldn't stand it up, but I could put the lions together, make it look like it was forming Voltron. It would just be laying on its back on my floor while the characters were doing other things. And so because I was just, in my world. Um, but then back in the 2010s when we started getting the Netflix Legendary Defender series, I love that series. I thought it was great because it was very contiguous. You like from like episode 1 all the way through the end of the series, you could see the flow of character development, the flow of storytelling. It was very serialized in a way that other Voltron series hadn't been in the past, and I got really into it, and I was able to collect all 5 lions, and now they're not in my office. They're actually sitting on a shelf in my bedroom.
Are you excited for the Voltron movie that's coming out? There's supposed to be a live action Voltron movie with like
Yeah,
Sydney Sweeney and Henry Cavill that's supposed to be coming out
yeah.
very soon. Yeah, no trailers yet. I've only
No,
been following it
they
mainly.
just barely finished wrapping production in like October, November.
Good
Like they haven't
lord,
even done any post production yet.
that trade. That's one of those movies where I heard about it and I'm like, okay, because they've been talking doing a Vulture movie for like God knows for how long, right? I'm like,
Dude,
hey, it's finally coming out. That was one of those series that I really enjoyed watching as a kid. I would have to give it a rewatch. I haven't rewatched that in years, but I remember really liking it. I love the design of that Black Lion kind of Megazord looking. I love that thing. It
yeah.
looks cool as hell. I
And
love
so
Gundam and things like that too. So I'm a sucker for those kind of mecha shows. I hope that it's good. It better not be one of those live action one where it's like humans just bog everything down with bullshit. I hope it's not.
I well, so the thing is, if it's done well, and with Henry Cavill, I like the projects that he works on, especially when they're nerd projects like this. Like he was the best part of The Witcher. I never played the Witcher video games. I never read the books. I didn't know anything about it, but I knew that Henry Cavill was in it. I knew just how devoted he was to these kinds of projects, and so I gave it a shot. And I watched through the first 2 seasons. And granted, the seasons have varying degrees of quality, but he was consistent as Geralt of Rivia. I loved it. He was great. I loved him as Superman. I thought he did a great job with with how he was directed and the way he went about doing it. Like he didn't want to CGI the muscles. If he committed to doing something, he committed to it. Um, he like his like I'm really excited about him doing the Highlander and that coming out in the next year because one, he's working with Chad Stahelski, who gave us the John Wick films, but two, the fact that it's Henry Cavill and he's working on this project and being very committed to it, I am so excited for that because I grew up watching the Highlander TV series, and back in 2017, I actually got to meet Adrian Paul, who played Duncan MacLeod. Really cool guy. Like he was here locally at a comic convention, uh, and I found out that he was going to be there. And on the last day, as I'm wrapping up, I finally get a chance to go over towards where he was, and I just saw him kind of hanging out. He was with his, I guess his manager or whatever, and uh, and so I got to talking. And for me, the only thing I really wanted to do was just shake his hand and say thank you, because his character and the performance he gave as Duncan
Mhm.
uh, inspired a lot of the stuff that I eventually ended up writing. And he was actually cool enough. I asked him if we could take a selfie, and normally they charge for that kind of thing, especially but because it was after hours and he was off the clock and all that, he's like, "Yeah, let's do it. I'm not supposed to, but yeah, let's do it." And he was totally cool about it. And it was so neat to be able uh, to interact with someone who is, who loved that performance so well. And so having Cavill kind of taking over as Connor McLeod, as the original film character, I'm excited to see how that plays out.
Oh, sorry guys, I misspoke. Voltron does have Henry Cavill.
Yeah.
Gundam, the live action Gundam movie, has Sydney Sweeney in it. I'm gonna watch them
Yes.
both because, well, I love Gundam. So, you know,
And I like
but
Sydney Sweeney.
yeah, she has some really nice assets that really drive people to watch her movies. Good
Yeah,
lord.
something about the denim she wears, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to watch Housemaid because my theater messed up the freaking showtimes for it, but I was trying to watch that for the plot, as you guys know.
Plot or plots?
Yeah, it depends on the day. I can go for them both. God damn it, these puns make themselves. So I was gonna say, because when you said earlier you were more selective about which movies you watch, so moving basically, I don't know what year you mentioned, or you, afraid you didn't really mention a year. Does that mean you essentially see less than 10 movies now,
Yeah.
or
Like for example, this year, I have seen I went week and a half a week ago. Yeah, week ago to go see the new Scream movie.
I watched it too. Yeah.
I enjoyed it. It wasn't the greatest, but I enjoyed it. I think it was a decent movie for what we got. Um, it feels a little off kilter if you're a big fan, the lore and the franchise, but um, I enjoyed it for what it was.
It's
There are
gonna be
some,
one of those divisive ones
yeah,
because
kind of like Scream
yeah,
3 was.
yeah. For me, I have that one ranked at the bottom with Scream 3 because I feel like they're, because it's weird because I feel like every Scream movie has very like variously good things about them though. Like it's something that all the movies actually do really effectively. They really do have this like really cool horror fun atmosphere to be in. And I feel like Scream 7 along with Scream 6 kind of suffer from basically like the studio creatives kind of messing with the movies and everything. Like it's something where basically for me, if if the people that worked at Paramount and the executives or whoever is working with these movies, that initial offer that Nev Campbell got, where it made her basically not appear in Scream 6 because Scream 6 was supposed to have Nev Campbell, but then since she wasn't going to be in it because whatever money they offered her wasn't good enough for her, she said no. Now all those plans change. Then you have
Yeah,
Melissa Barrera, Jenna Ortega getting fired. Now all the plans for this movie change, and then they have to crawl back to Nev Campbell, even though they should have never offered that money anyway. I can understand if like she was a secondary character. It's like, okay, you're not the main character. Getting that kind of contract doesn't make sense for you. But she's the
right.
main
But she's been
character
the
of the.
face of the franchise
This is yeah.
for
This
30
is the
years.
main character, and it's like, yeah, she kind of does deserve that. Like, if I'm being that, it would be like if the Halloween franchise, the people that ran it, didn't offer Jamie Lee Curtis a good contract to come back. It's like, okay, come on, you wouldn't really have this
Well,
at some point without her, you know?
this one kind of dispels a lot of the meta movie references. Like they try to bring that in midway when they're trying to figure out who the culprits are. And I it was for on the one hand, I think it was kind of fresh because I think the meta commentary got a little too tongue in cheek. Um, on the other hand, it feels like the plot for this one comes out of left field. Like I'm not going to give anything away, and for at least another month until after the movie's been out for a while. Um, but I kind of wish that the killer had been who I hoped it would have been. And you've seen the movie, so you can kind of
Yeah,
gauge
and
where I'm going with
I
that.
tell people it's one of those Scream movies where it has good things about it like the other ones.
Mhm.
So it would be very similar to the same things why people criticize Scream 3. This still kind of feels like the other ones, but there's kind of like if you're making a soup, there's a few ingredients missing here that make it not
Yeah.
taste as good as the other ones. My personal thing with it is like, well, I think the ending reveal gets to be a little bit of a letdown because this is kind of a reveal we've had for like a lot of the past ones though. It's very how would I essentially say without spoiling? Essentially, they've kind of touched on this kind of thing as a reveal for other better movies they've released, and then this one is kind of just treading that same one as if kind of rehashing it. It's like, all right, oh okay, but I still enjoy. It's crazy. I did enjoy my time when watching it, but when you kind of thinking of it, when you kind of criticize it from like a movie lens, you're like, okay, I can see where it doesn't kind of hold up to the others. Now, Scream 3, they were saying Cindy's mom was giving head for movie roles, and it's like, okay, that's kind of where it's like, okay, we knew she was a
Well,
whore, but it's like, oh my
right.
god.
Well, like, so when, so I, the first three movies came out during the time that I was in high school. Like, because the first two came out pretty much back to back, and then there was a
Yeah.
3 year gap before Scream 3 came out. And I didn't see any of them until they were on cable. Just because at the time I wasn't into horror movies, and I just happened to watch them on HBO one night, and I enjoyed it. Like, I thought they were great. And ironically enough, especially when I was watching the first one, um, I because Woodsboro is very similar to my hometown, very small, kind of with a lot of country rural areas. Um, I was actually home by myself, house sitting for my folks while they were out of town, and I watched it, and it really kind of creeped me out. But I enjoyed the film. I liked the series, and then after they came out, like we had that 11-year gap between Scream 3 and Scream 4, and when I was living in Fresno or Clovis around that time, and when I saw the initial posters for it, I'm like, what the heck? They're gonna make another Scream? Why? Like, what else can they do? Who's going to be the killer? I actually, and so like the way that they went through with Scream 4, I actually liked that because it did bring in someone from Sydney's, peripheral or periphery, and it is someone that's part of her past, but it's not someone you would have expected because in like the fake outs at the beginning were brilliant
Oh
because
yeah,
like
Scream 4 is
they're playing
very
off the
good. Mhm.
films, and it really set the tone for what we were going to be dealing with. And then we had that another huge gap between that one and
You know what's
Scream
crazy?
5.
People don't know. It's a fun fact. The same time to get to Scream 3 to 4 is the same time to get to 4 to 5. Actually, that's crazy to think about at this point now. That's why when we've had this many back to back, I'm like, you know what? I went like decades without getting through these. So
So I what I liked about Scream 5 is that yeah, we're brought back to Woodsboro, but we're brought back with a new group of characters in a way that feels organic because you have someone trying to reboot the franchise, which by that point was doing reboots was all the rage. Because we're still seeing it happening. Disney is cannibalizing their own IPs just for the sake of rebooting and making money, and it's become an exercise in futility. But Scream 5 is great because it introduces this new avenue, this new this like having Melissa Barrera being the illegitimate daughter of Billy Loomis was fantastic for a twist. I did not see that coming. I'm like, she's got to be connected some way, shape, or form. She's got to be connected. And the fact that she turns out to be Billy Loomis's illegitimate daughter, and then on top of that, you've got her like she's got the mental health issues where she's hallucinating her dad.
those were very good. I thought those were very well done.
I thought so too. And the fact that we got Skeet Ulrich playing Billy again was amazing. Um, and the fact that everything culminated back at Stu Macher's house really, really picked up on that whole reboot thing. And then I like the fact that the sixth one didn't have Sydney in it. I like the fact that they went to New York, that they went to a much larger killing ground because it opened up so many different avenues for how they could do it, especially with newer technologies and how everything was happening. And 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 while there's a little bit of a rehash with how Scream 6 and Scream 5 kind of mirror each other, I actually really like that. I like because like if you look at them, you've got the first three, bam, bam, bam. Like there's because Roman Bridger in part three says that he was the one who got Billy and Stu going on this idea of making their movie. And then you've got Mrs. Loomis coming in during the second film, and everything that she does with Mickey is it's a consequence built up an escalation from the original film. And then Roman, he sees that didn't go well. Sydney didn't die. He's got to step up his game. He's already set the bar that he's this director. He's up and coming. He's made a name for himself. Cool. Now it's time to target little sister. Great. Okay. But then you get part four. And part four, what we have is her cousin trying to replace her. She's trying to initiate the reboot because she wants the fame. She wants and I kind of want to know the psychology behind her, because it's like, what happened in her life that really twisted her to the point where she had to kill for it?
Because what I really enjoyed with the Scream 4 is when you have moments like that really showcase how all these things can come up. So how I placed your character in my mind was that you have a person who has this thing called, what do they call it these days? Called main character syndrome. They can't be the main character. They don't have the aura of being the main character, but they try to be the main character. And then they get outshined when someone with like more aura, as kids say these days, comes back in their lives, or just is going to be a part of their lives, and they're always outshining them. What I really enjoyed with Scream 4 was because a lot of people don't actually understand, because they seem to be newer to these kind of franchises. Like them watching the newest one in the theaters is like their first time essentially with it. But people understand Scream got its popularity also because it was a commentary on the state of the horror genre at the time, and Scream 4 is a commentary essentially on like around that period where you had like these late 2000s, early 2010s, like horror remakes and sequels and all that stuff. And what you see is at the end of the movie, when she beats her cousin, or her niece, or her niece actually, or cousin, when that part where she's like, "Don't fuck with the original," you could just mic drop moment right there, because that was horror movies at that moment in time, because all of them were sequels and remakes and all that stuff. Who forget? I think it's Scream 4, when that came out the same year, Piranha 3D came out, and that was like a sequel or a remake of like the original one with James Cameron that directed.
Yeah, it was just a remake of a remake of a remake of the original thing. And and I liked that commentary. What Scream 5 did is it delved more into the kind of highbrow horror that you're starting to see in the 2010s and 2000 teens, with like movies like The Babadook and some of the others that got mentioned. I mean, what is it? I can't remember which one it is, but there's one about a girl who's trying to outrun a demon. Um,
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and basically it's the whole thing is commentary on sexually transmitted diseases.
Good Lord.
Because that's how it got passed to her, is she slept with someone and the curse got passed on to her. And so she ended up having to pass it on to somebody else by having sex with that other person.
Oh, it's with a white girl. I know the movie's name, but I know what you're talking about. Now I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So so you've got all these highbrow versions of horror coming out, and that's fine. That's great. Because you can do a lot with it. And especially if it has more of a supernatural or science fiction basis, because science fiction is always asking those kinds of questions. They're always asking those kinds of ethical, moral dilemmas. And then, but with Scream 5, you also get the idea of the fan film, because think about what has become really good on YouTube lately. Fan films have been doing well.
Yeah.
And you've got guys like Markiplier who go and make their own for just what? I mean, essentially, it's pocket change compared to these major film studios. But I mean, he spent what, $50,000, something like that, and made his own
Hollywood
movie.
could make movies for $50,000.
Dude, we used to make movies for $50,000.
Yeah, it used to be the budgets back in the day.
I
Yeah.
mean, let's just look at some of the highest grossing movies that had under $100,000 as their budget, and they did well.
I think the first Halloween movie had a budget of like 50K or something like that.
Yeah,
100K.
something like that, and they went on to more than, I mean, it's almost $1 billion franchise.
Yeah.
But again, it has become an exercise on diminishing returns, which is funny because if you look at the newest Scream movie, it is exactly like that. Like, it becomes that long in the tooth sequel that's like, this comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, and what's crazy is they were making fun of these big horror movie franchises, like these long sequels, because they had the stab movies in their own universe. What I enjoyed, at least with the whole Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega thing, at least in Scream 6, they do have an ending where it's not like one of those where they can't resolve it. Because, you know, like in movies and TV, if an actor or actress leaves because of some reasons or bullshit, then they will never come back and finish it. At least it sucks they didn't get a chance to finish out their trilogy, but at least in Scream 6, they have a moment where it could be just be amicably resolved.
And Melissa Barrera drops the mask, which was kind of symbolic of she's done. She's leaving it behind.
Yeah.
She's moving on with her life. And I think it was well done. I kind of wish, I mean, this is, and it brings up an issue that I have with a lot of actors in Hollywood. Like, I don't go and pay to see you talk about your beliefs, whether they're political, socio, religious, whatever. I don't care. If you make a good picture, I will throw money at it. Like, I disagree with a lot of the personal stuff going on with Tom Cruise. I think he's a complete wackadoo, but the man makes a damn good movie. Okay, there's a reason why Top Gun Maverick did so well in the theaters after the pandemic. There's a reason why, even if they haven't been as good as previous entries, the last two Mission Impossible movies did well. Okay, people want to go see these movies. I mean, I think there's a long list of fans that want to see if he's going to kill himself with a stunt. But at the same time, he makes a damn good picture, and he uses a lot of in-camera practical effects and stunts, and I respect him for that. The fact that he is in his 60s and he's pushing his own physical boundaries is fantastic. I can't do it, but he can. And he turns in some really great performances. I do think some of them stoke his ego a little bit too much, but at the same time, you know, he's shown that he's a draw for the box office. The like, but I hate to see someone get fired because they're expressing an opinion or they're expressing, like, I don't agree with any of the things that Melissa Barrera was saying from a fundamental level. But I don't think she should have been fired for whatever opinion she had.
And that's the thing too. If someone doesn't want to essentially keep someone around anymore, I would advise Hollywood to stop doing that too. Because Jamie Lee Curtis, I think, had an interview recently. I think a lot of people saw it where, you know, Paramount is going to be ran by people that may have political views that a lot of people don't, a certain side doesn't agree with. And then she basically said something along the lines of, I hope we can get to a point where we could all work together despite having different views. Which is crazy because that's what a lot of people were saying when certain people would get ousted from Hollywood, whether they're left or right. That's what people want. That's what I want too. Keep in mind, I might not agree with someone who thinks certain political opinion, but I don't want you fired at your job for that. That's like that should always be the line. It's like that's kind of to me that's always been kind of stupid and silly, you know, unless it's really serious, you know.
I will say at least let them finish the project that you've contracted them for. And then afterwards, you know, be done with them.
Yeah.
But like, where there are a few exceptions to that rule for me. Case in point, the actress Rachel Zegler, who on Snow White, like all of her commentary, she was, I mean, wholly unlikable in the interviews that she was giving, and that's fine. But then she started Then she started bad mouthing the original IP on interviews where she's representing Disney. And it's like, that's not good. That's not what you want. And it also didn't help that on set she was creating some level of hostility between with regards to some of her political views with her co-star, who
Yeah.
is
Oh,
who's a former member of the IDF. So
mm,
pick and choose your audience when you're sharing your thoughts. Not everything has to be public, but unfortunately, there's this mentality of you see it more in Gen Z and Gen Alpha,
oh yeah.
where every little thought in their head has to go out on social media all the time, always. Like for me, like the things that I very rarely post on anything personal anymore. The main reason why I have Facebook is so I can keep in contact and make posts specifically for my family members who live in other parts of California or other parts of the
Mhm,
country so that they know what's going on when we have something family oriented going
mhm.
on. My personal Instagram is connected to my Facebook account. Very rarely do I post on those. I post, and I used to post a lot on Twitter and X until that whole thing became a cesspool of division. Thankfully, I don't see it as much on YouTube. I do, or not. I'm sorry, not YouTube. Instagram. I do see it, not as often because I'm a little bit more selective about what I
It's actually
have.
easier to curate it on
Yeah,
Instagram. Yeah.
but what I post are posts about what I've got working on with my projects, and then anything I've got going on with Feast of Fandoms or my own YouTube channel.
Mhm,
That is it. And most of what I post, especially like for example, this coming Saturday, I've got a new episode of my show, The Right Way, on YouTube, and uh, I'm featuring an author that I interviewed. She's been on the show a number of times, either as an interviewee or as a guest host,
mhm.
providing writing tips or book recommendations, what have you. And she has unofficially won the most guest appearances on my show in 8 years of doing this. And she's a wonderful, wonderful person to talk to. And so my posts have been about promoting the episode and promoting her as being my interviewee for the month. And that's the kind of stuff that I work on. And so a lot of the stuff that is personal or anything like, I don't see a lot of that anymore. And it makes me feel healthier psychologically and emotionally. But like I work with students. I'm a substitute teacher. I'm trying to finish a teaching credential. I work with students on a regular, consistent basis. And like these kids are just, don't get me wrong. I have my fair share of screen time where I'm just like doom scrolling all the time. And it's usually after I've gotten everything else that I need to do done. But these kids are on their phones all the time. Like I
Yeah.
literally had a student ask me what a word was, and I'm like, you have access to instant information and you aren't utilizing it. You're posting about what Dutch Brothers drink you want to buy for $8 when you can get something so much better, cheaper.
Good lord, man.
Yeah, like oh, I remember what it was. It was a group of juniors and seniors today asking
Mhm.
about which amendment to the Constitution dealt with the right to vote. And they were just sitting there guessing, and I'm like, and like the teacher that I
Even
was
I know
subbing for,
it's the 19th one, right?
15th.
That's the woman right to vote. That's the 19th one.
Yeah, the
That was
15th was the general right to vote uh,
yes, yes.
before women's suffrage kicked in. But so the student who is guessing about it, like the teacher had me giving ratings for how well each class did for throughout the day.
Yeah.
And this was the class right before lunch. It was a small group, like 7 total students for this like AP bio class, and they actually were really great. They were fun. They were very smart. They got their work done. I had no problems with them. But I was going to give them a 2 out of 10 score because this one kid didn't wasn't aware of what his constitutional rights were, and I said, if you want your 10, download the US Constitution app on your phone right now. He's like, okay, done. I'm like, okay, you got your 10. You're good. I was holding that hostage for the entire class because I wanted to make sure that he knew, hey, you've got
You know what
Constitution.
I've noticed with people their age? They don't interact enough with people. It's like they do technically interact if it's going public school. I don't feel like they interact enough on a consistent basis enough to even know what body language is. I know they go to parties and hang out with their friends like we all used to do. I don't feel like they have enough basic confrontation with people. Like they don't interact
No,
enough. Although they're only going to interact with people in their circle. That's it.
well, I take that back. They do, but you've got it's kind of a weird mixed bag because you've got students who they'll be sitting clustered together eating lunch,
Yeah.
but not a single one of them is actually talking to the other, and they're all on their phones. Or you've got those kids who've already kind of like coupled up, and they've got their girlfriend, they've got their boyfriend, they found a nice little shady spot behind a hedge somewhere, and they're just sucking face or trying to, but then people keep walking by. And so like, oh, I can't really do anything because and it's like, dude, guys, you're 15. Go touch grass. And like it's really interesting because like back when I was a kid, like I grew up with having to interact with other kids. I had to grow up interacting with adults. I had to learn body language. There were so many times where like my like if I was interacting with an adult, like I would pick up on something. I'd be like, "Are we okay?" Like, like, and that, for me, that's just me overthinking a lot of interactions. But I had people who would, just a look, a glance, with their body language, whatever, it would flag something in my brain, and I'd have to ask, what's our climate check here?
Yeah.
Are we cool? Are we copacetic? Kids don't do that anymore. People don't do that anymore. Like I cannot
It's
tell you
just
the number of times and I'm guilty of this too. Like
yeah.
I have been at my parents' house visiting with them. My dad and I are watching TV, or we're what like the thing that we watch together is Jeopardy. My mom's in her office working on something, or she's just vegging out because she's tired after work. And at some point, I'm on my phone while interacting with my dad. My mom's in her office. She's watching a Hallmark channel while on her phone. And it's like, come on. There have been times where I've even caught my mom doing this. Like, I'm trying to show her something that I thought was really, really cool, whether it's like a video that I thought we'd both be interested in, or maybe I'm reading something to her. And while I'm trying to have this conversation with her, she's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, okay, okay." And then she starts playing like some like AI clip of puppies dancing. And it's like, mom, seriously, come on, come on. Don't be like those little idiots that you keep complaining about. Have some attention span here.
And I feel like a lot of them just get sucked into scrolling on. Oh, to be fair, I do this too. This Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels. I don't do TikTok. I never really got.
Yeah,
I tried to do it. I didn't really care for it. But Instagram, Facebook Reels, and Instagram Reels are just, oh god, those are addicting sometimes.
yeah.
Yeah, good lord. But it's something here where people's attention spans. I'm pretty sure you've noticed with somebody's new generation, their attention span can't even allow them to focus on reading a page in a book. That's bad. That's
Oh,
awful.
it's worse. They can't read.
So now they're the black guy meme that apparently that used to only just be. Now we're all the black guys now.
Well, and like I've taught English in two different public schools, one in Fresno.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, I was having to I had seventh graders up in Fresno, and I taught freshmen English the following year after that. And what struck me as odd was I was having to teach. I mean, you're always going to have some level of ELD students in the class,
Right. Yeah.
especially here in California.
Mm-hmm.
But I was having to teach literacy to these kids, and I'm like, you should be able to read.
Who were their teachers? Okay, to be fair, maybe it's not the teacher, because I know I used to have this problem as a kid too. Sometimes these kind of things in school are just perceived as boring to people, and they just don't care.
Well, it's not just that. It's ever since George W. Bush signed No Child Left Behind into law,
Oh, yeah, I remember
that
that.
has
Yeah.
affected how education has been handled through, at least at the public school level, for the
Mhm.
last 20 so years. And so you've got students, like, there are whole school districts where the students cannot be failed. They cannot be flunked. You could give them at least a 55%, and that's not a failure. It's the lowest of the low, but the point is to have them be able to go on to the next grade level, because that's where those public schools are drawing their money from. I had a student when I was teaching at one particular school site who created a hostile environment in my classroom. He particularly targeted a girl, um, who had an IEP for emotional disturbance, because he got his jollies off from harassing her.
What in the
He threatened me
fuck?
with physical violence, and I asked both my admin and his counselor to move him out of my classroom into a different teacher who taught a freshman English class.
Mhm.
And there was only two other teachers who had that. And they said they were more concerned about his ability to do Air Force ROTC than making sure that my classroom was a safe environment. And, like,
Oh god.
it told me exactly what I needed to know about that admin. It told
Mhm.
me everything I needed to know about that school. They cared more about butts and seats and the money it brought in from the feds and from the state than
Mhm.
they did about making sure that the classroom was not only safe, or was not only a productive environment, but a safe environment.
And keep in mind, when I'm laughing here, guys, I'm not laughing at his story. I'm laughing in jest because these things haven't changed. I experienced these things when I was in school. These things haven't changed at all. You know, like it's no wonder why parents take their kids out of public school and just kind of just say, "Fuck it, I'll just do it
Well,
myself."
and I've worked at a private school too. Um,
Same thing, same very similar
not
structure.
not not the same, not the same degree. I didn't have students who were threatening violence or anything like that.
Good lord.
But what I did encounter was, like, I encountered, because this was, like, coming right out of the pandemic. The school was up in the Fresno area. They were not requiring masks. They were not requiring that students, get vaccinated or anything like that.
Mhm.
And which was fine, but uh, but we had a lot of students whose families were pulling them out of public school for political reasons, not just because they wanted to have a good education, not because they wanted to make sure that the kids got top-notch teachers and more one-on-one time with their teachers. They specifically wanted to have a background where it was a little bit more controllable for them, and I get that. As a parent myself, I want to make sure that my kid gets the best services and the best education possible. But there comes a point where you have to understand the motivation behind that. And it became problematic because I had a particular student that he was a smart kid, but he messed around a lot. And he was lazy, and he looked for any opportunity he could to get out of doing the assignment. Even if, like, you threatened to keep him on a write up schedule, that if he didn't do anything, he'd lose out on video game privileges at home. Like, there was one day where, like, I had this, like, those calculator sheets where,
Yeah.
like, it was just, it hung on the wall. I gave the kids all, numbers based off that chart, and they had to put their phones into one of those pockets, the pocket associated with their number. Kid you not, this kid put his calculator into that pocket because it looked similar to his phone, because he had one of, like, the iPhone pluses, so it was massive. Like, the thing was bigger than his face.
What are they feeding these kids? Coffee when they're growing up?
Just about.
Tap water? What are they drinking when they're babies? Tap water? Something made their brains just.
I don't know, but, like, and then he went. He's like, "Hey, Mr. Jones, can I go use the bathroom?" Yeah, yeah, yeah. Be quick about it. And I got caught up working with other students, and I didn't realize how much time he had spent being out of the classroom. 15 minutes had gone by, and he was in the bathroom playing Clash of Clans on his phone.
Yeah. These these kids are so addicted to their phones.
Mm,
It's crazy. Like, because back when I was growing up, we had Game Boys, and I had a
yeah,
Game Boy SP when I could stop using batteries and charge my stuff, so I could just basically be there all night playing that. We had DSs and like that. It's and now kids have tablets and everything. It's crazy. I kind of wonder what the other generations will look like, because this one already has like a bunch of kids that are super mentally ill, unwell,
I
parent situations are bad.
I worry about that because like I had a student one time tell me that they hated reading, and I said, "Why?" And they're like, "Well, it's boring." I'm like, "What's boring about it? Put it into words for me." And she couldn't.
Mhm.
And she's like, "Well, I," and what it really came down to is she hated being forced to read things she wasn't interested in. And I said, "I get that because I've had to deal with that ever since I was a student.
Yeah,
I had
yeah.
to read books for lit classes. I had to read textbooks for my classes. I am not a math person. I don't do well with math, but I had to open up a math book and read through it because I needed to know those skills.
Yeah.
But and here's how I explained it to her. I said, when you're reading an informational text, whether it's a news article, a magazine article, you're reading someone's blog on the internet, whatever that text is, what you are doing is you are feeding the informational side of your brain. You are building your vocabulary. You are building your knowledge base. You're building your understanding of the world around you.
Mhm.
When you read a creative text, whether it's a short story, a poem, a book, or you're just reading the lyrics to your favorite song, because it blows their mind when you tell them songs are poetry. That rap song that you love listening to, that hip hop song,
Mhm.
that R&B song, that the rock song, the country song, whatever music you're listening to, it's poetry. If it has
The
a rhyme scheme to it, it's
mhm.
poetry.
The best thing I always explained to someone who was younger than me, that they always said they didn't like reading. I always just read about a movie or a TV show or something that you really enjoy. Try reading trivia about it. Try looking up stuff where you don't have where you don't- where you have to visualize what you saw in a franchise and kind of piece things together. Because I feel like what I learned is a lot of people can't express themselves because of this certain word. It's called it starts with an A, where it's like you end up at a point where you say I don't know, but it's not that you're saying I don't know because you're intentionally doing it. That's like a defense coping mechanism that your brain comes up with when you don't know how to express yourself properly. That's what
Right.
a lot of these kids are developing in mass. It's not just we used to have this is a mass thing. People can't properly express how they feel. And keep in mind, some of these things that people feel, even though they might feel embarrassed about it, some of these things are not bad things to feel. Like I don't understand. You're allowed to be, what's that word, ignorant or dumb on something because you don't know X thing. That's allowed because you can grow with new information that might come to you. But people kind of feel like now, where, in school, like at one point they were telling people there's no such thing as a dumb question.
Yeah.
Actually, there isn't, though, because if you don't know, then you should ask. But hey, it's gonna be kind of, people might make fun of you for not knowing. But if you don't know, then it's actually better if you do ask, so you do understand,
Right.
actually. But I feel like a lot of people have to understand how you feel can vary given degrees. Like, people don't understand how to be sad these days. And it's like, going through general sadness is fine. That doesn't mean you're depressed. Everyone goes through these
Well, and
things.
see, and here's the thing. There's a jumping back on the topic of songs. There's a band that I love listening to. They made one
Mhm.
album and then they disbanded, and they're called Mad at Gravity. And if you've ever seen the movie Rain of Fire with Christian Bale and Matthew McConaughey, their music is featured in that movie, and that's actually the first time I ever heard them. But one of their albums, um, and I can't remember the title off the top of my head. Hold on, let me see if I can pull it up here because I've got it on iTunes. No, get off of that. I don't want an advertisement. Okay, Mad at Gravity. There we go.
See, this is the beauty of phones. Ugh,
Can be.
thank
Um,
God for technology.
okay, the song is called "Run for Cover,"
Mhm.
and the premise is talking about um, all the like the entitlement that people are almost required nowadays to feel, and um, The bridge says, I've got no class, but I've got cash, and I cannot expect to feel so bored. And that resonates with me because when I was a kid, if I didn't have anything to do, if I wasn't allowed to watch TV, if I said I was bored, my parents' response was, "Go do something to entertain yourself." That's like if I didn't have kids to play with in my neighborhood, that's what I would do. I would go and play with myself. I had my action figures. I would do something, and what I did with the action figures, um, because I grew up. Power Rangers was a big thing when I was in late elementary, early middle school,
Mhm.
and you couldn't find the toys because they're always selling off shelves.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like
Mhm.
my Walmart, like they had a section for just Power Rangers, and it was empty 9 times out of 10.
You would go play.
Chloe, no, not like that.
Oh my
Not like
god.
that.
Behave yourself, lady. Good lord.
But I would I had other action figures that I would use in place of those characters that I wanted to have action figures for. And I retooled characters and stuff like that in my head, and I made it work. And it started from there, and I started developing my own stories. I started developing my own kind of, I guess, fan fiction. And when I had access to, at first it was a little, not a little, it was
Mhm.
huge, it covered a desk, but a word processor, an electronic typewriter with a screen and everything on it. I started coming up with my own stories on that thing. I could only see like 3 or 4 lines of text at a time, and so I had to be very specific about where things were, and I got so that's part of the reason why I got really good with editing and paying attention to grammar and stuff like that, because I had to. Otherwise, all my homework would be just crap. Um, but it started there, and I started developing these stories, and then by the time I got into freshman year, I started writing original characters.
Mhm.
And uh, by the end of my freshman year, I wrote this story, um, and it was set modern day. It was a vigilante superhero uh, setup. It was kind of like the Green Ranger meets Batman meets Iron Man, based in the Bay Area. Like
Mhm.
he had this dragon themed armor. He was a vigilante, and that became the basis for one of the characters in my book series. I just took him out of that modern day setting and I made him a medieval ranger,
Mhm.
still with the dragon theme, but instead of like technological armor that he's wearing, he actually has a pet dragon that he bonds with. And
Hmm.
and that kind of got me started in that ring. So when my parents said, "Hey, if you're bored, go do something about it," I would go and do something about it.
Dude,
Like,
we
I
were
mean, I
thrown
grew up
out.
in
We were thrown outside after the Saturday morning cartoons were over. She
right,
said, "Go outside." You
dude.
just
Like
kind of
that.
figured it out until 5 o'clock.
Yeah, I like during the summers. I had until the sun started going down and the lights started coming on. That was, I mean, and by the time we moved back to California, I had a lot more kids in the neighborhood that I could play around with and hang out with, and we all had a lot of similar stuff. And like one of the things that we found that was a lot of fun, and you'll never see kids doing this in this day and age, but we would get Nerf guns, and where we were living at the time, it was a huge, brand new subdivision, so there's houses going up all the time, and on Saturdays, those especially if you had the house skeleton, just the framework, they were sitting empty. So you had these two-story houses that were brand new. All they had was the framework. You didn't even have like the drywall up, and we could just walk right onto that property, and we would use that as our battleground with Nerf guns. We had like arrow darts and
Mm.
and the blasters and all that. It was so much fun. Like we would team up, we would play search and destroy, stuff like that. It was so much fun. Now the kids would like 10, 15, 20 years ago, kids were playing with airsoft guns or paintball and stuff like that. So they're doing something similar. But now, because of all the stuff that we've seen with like school shootings and
Yeah.
mass violence and stuff like that, now kids don't do that. It is
Mhm.
now safer to go and do that on a video game.
Mhm.
And then you have to worry about, you still have to deal with bullying, but it's way different because it's anonymous.
Well, now all the kids want to become streamers. They see a few people do it. Or I think for their generation, the biggest one was that black guy, Kai Cenat and I Showed Speed. They
Yeah.
want to be streamers because, well, that's their entertainment now. Is like our entertainment was watching like movies and television. When
Mhm.
they grew up, their entertainment became like the entertainment that was starting when we were in our like teens and 20s. That
Yeah.
was their TV. It's like
I
their
mean,
TV is watching Twitch. Yeah.
YouTube didn't come out until almost 20. YouTube is 19 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, people watching us on YouTube right now are watching us on a 19-year-old platform. I mean, if you are in your 20s, if you are in your 30s, or you're beyond that, you are older than that platform.
What's crazy is that means you're basically saying I'm a star. That's basically what it means now.
I
So
wish,
a few
I
things.
wish I had that kind of following.
Good lord, man. You know what's crazy? The internet is so 50-50, inconsistently consistent. That's probably the best way of phrasing it. I like that I have a consistent job where it can pay me. But if I ever had a life where I could do the other thing, I wouldn't mind it. So I could make
Yeah.
millions of dollars just from streaming and making that. Actually, I can see why people get addicted to that. You literally get to live like what we used to call like the life from just
Mhm.
basically just sitting at your chair and talking into a microphone. I
Yeah,
can see
lifestyles
why
of
it's
the rich
that
and
way.
famous.
But I don't know if all that's it's cracked up to be. What's that old saying? Yeah, growing up it was called out the grass is the grass always greener on the other
Yeah.
side? I don't know because their famous streamer Kai Cenat burned and crashed out and didn't want to do it anymore.
Well,
So is it all
think about, and think about how public that makes you. Um, like, so I had a think about all those people who have been on YouTube or TikTok or whatever, and they got blasted for all the wrong reasons.
Mhm,
They went viral for all the wrong reasons,
mhm.
and it absolutely sucks. I worked a job a few years ago where someone caught me on camera. I asked them to turn off the camera. They didn't. Because here in California, they're very specific about if you're out in public, anybody can film you at any time.
Yeah, it's a very
The
one party
only time
consent. Yeah.
that you are allowed to expect some level of privacy is A, in your own home, B, in a classroom setting, or B, in a business setting.
Mhm.
But if you're walking the street and someone catches you on camera, you cannot stop them. You can't file a complaint for harassment because they're well within their First Amendment rights to do so. And I got frustrated with the whole situation. It got put up on the internet. Uh, I got I started getting emails from people I didn't know. I started getting messages on social media on my YouTube channel, and it got me fired from work.
Which is crazy. That shouldn't even really be a thing where that
Well,
can
and here's
happen.
why. Here's why. I was wearing my official name badge. It had my manager's number on it,
Mm.
and she was getting calls from Canada, of all places, telling them that they needed to cancel me. They essentially doxed me because, well, I doxed myself because I had my badge on,
Mhm.
and it had my name and a contact number. So that was on me. And but is the fact that they went through the process to do that, and the video only got like 80,000 hits, and nothing has come of it since then. But the fact remains that in doing absolutely nothing, but just being out on the street with my name badge, I lost a job that I very much enjoyed and loved
Mhm.
because of cancel culture, because of being on the wrong side of going viral.
Yeah. And what people don't understand about what you just said is imagine like, throughout your life, maybe during a year, 5 people tell you you're trash or whatever. Then now I want you guys to multiply that by 100 people saying these things potentially every hour on the hour, people having discussions in threads,
Mhm.
saying the most absolute ludicrous lies about you.
I mean,
Magnify that for like 5 hours straight. And this is what people that are famous people do.
being a celebrity sucks. Like, I mean, just today I was in the Feast of Fandoms chat that we do on Facebook Messenger, and I was talking about, like, I was making jokes about Taylor Swift, how she's a celebrity that I don't care for. My personal view is that she is a succubus from the 10th circle of hell, and while Dante only wrote 9 circles of hell in the Divine Comedy, they had to create a 10th one just for her.
I think Diddy probably should be in there, but I agree.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I definitely would agree. But my point is that people love to complain. People love, like, I think Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back said it best. When it comes to people talking about the movies, the internet gave everybody a platform to just sit there and gripe, bitch, and complain about anything and everything that ever crosses their mind. And social media just made it even worse. And so, like, we will talk about celebrities and in the chat. We don't really do it so much in our podcasts as nearly as much, but we were talking about it in this particular chat. And my point is that when you become a celebrity, you have to really develop a thick skin. You have to ignore so much because you have everybody in the world, almost 8 billion people, with an opinion about what is going on in your life. They have an opinion about who you are and the decisions that you've made and the things that you've said and how you carry yourself and what you wear and what you eat and everything. It gets
Everyone's under a microscope. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so bizarre. Like, I had an opportunity to meet Leonardo DiCaprio.
That's crazy. That's huge.
It was fun. I was in school. I was in Monterey. I was on the coast, and it was my first semester over there. And I got a job. My one of my roommates worked as the projection manager for a theater, and I got hired on to work at the concession stand. Like, cool. I love movies. It gave me free access to movies whenever I needed to on my days off. And in December of 2006, so this is almost 20 years ago, I was working at the concession stand. I had something going on with my eye. Like, I had it wasn't an infection, but like I had like something irritating. I think like a contact lens or something. I don't know. But we had this huge 7 p.m. rush on a Tuesday. It was the weirdest thing. We didn't have any special ticket prices or anything like that going on, but just Mondays and Tuesday nights at 7 o'clock, we had these dinner rushes of people coming to the theater for whatever reason. And we get through the rush, and my concessions manager comes walking up, and there was a guy that I recognized only because I had seen him in an episode of The Outer Limits. And I recognized him from that episode because he was in the movie Mars Attacks, directed by Tim Burton. And so I turned to my manager. I'm like, hey, we just had a celebrity come through there. And she goes, yeah, DiCaprio. And I'm like, huh? And she goes, yeah, we had DiCaprio come through he handed you a $20 bill. And I'm like, what? And come to find out, the guy who was handing me the $20 bill was wearing just this Boston Red Sox cap, very unassuming. I didn't recognize him from Adam.
That's crazy.
Here's what I paid attention to. I paid attention to the tall guy with him because I recognized him from The Outer Limits and Mars Attacks. And the other comment going through my head was, that chick standing next to the dude is really hot. Spoiler alert, the chick happened to be Gisele Bündchen because they were dating at the time. Like, the same Victoria's Secret model that married Tom Brady. Yeah, I stood like less than a foot from her.
Man, that's crazy to think about now. Holy crap.
Had the opportunity later on in the evening to talk with him. He was looking at it was a poster for Epic Movie, for that one of those spoof movies. And I just walked up to him and I said, I don't understand why Hollywood keeps making crap like this. And he's like, because they can. And I said, well, aside from Titanic, thank you for not making crap movies. He just kind of looks at me and I'm like, dude, Titanic ruined high school for me. And I just walked off. I left it at that. My roommate, it was his last night. He ended up getting DiCaprio's autograph and a picture with him. Mm-hmm. And I've kind of pieced some things together. But the reason why that other tall guy that I recognized and DiCaprio were hanging out together is because they had worked on other stuff in the past when they were both younger actors. But they also they just finished filming scenes for Inception. And the guy played their original architect before they hired on Ellen Page, and so it was kind of cool that I had that ability to talk with him. But I mean, again, he's an actor, he's a celebrity. he knows he's under a microscope. He knows that if he goes somewhere in public and people recognize him, they're going to try and get the autograph. Like our managers were very specific. You cannot go and approach him. Do not try to ask for an autograph. Do not ask for a photograph. Nothing like that. It was my roommate's last night of work anyway. They couldn't fire him. So what did he do? As soon as DiCaprio got out of his showing, he just went walking out to the parking lot, followed him, and said, "Hey, can I get your autograph and take a picture with you?"
Man, because I think you brought up earlier with Taylor Swift. I feel like people have this thing too, where apparently, if you kind of voice any opinion that's just whether it's good or bad, I feel like people never understand that that's the territory when it comes with talking about this stuff. Like for me, whenever it came to conversations like similar to this one, even if it was, if you like, if I perceived an opinion to be good or bad, my thing was like, we're just having a conversation. That's it. You know, I didn't take any super malicious thing from it unless I was, I think that's the problem with the internet is I feel like people are taking every little bit of conversation they're having and they're perceiving mega malicious intent through it when it's just, we're just having a conversation. That's just really all it is. And I feel like that's where things need to bounce back to. Things need to bounce back to people just having conversations, and whether you have things said that you agree and disagree with, that's just the beauty of conversation. I don't understand why we must assume that all of our conversations must have this exact specific tone. For me, I don't have that because I feel like that's boring. That's be boring if all our conversations have the exact same tone of everything. That's just not how I like to have conversations, though.
Well, and the other thing is people take it so personally too. Like I've made comments about celebrities in the past on social media, and I have had people like jump to that person's defense and just try to rip me up one side and down the other. They're making all these ad hominem personal attacks on me, and I'm like, you guys don't know anything about me. Like, how are you able to make like? I know something about that celebrity because their life is in the public eye all the time. I'm able to make those assessments about what kind of a person they are based on behavior that's been made very public by them and by the media and by their publicity team. Like, that's where my position is coming from. Maybe they are a nice person. Who knows? I don't care. But like, I'm going to go off of the information I have, and I'm making an opinion. Like I said, everybody's got an opinion. They're like noses. Unless you're a leper, everyone's got one. But the thing of it is people take it so personally for no freaking reason.
It's always those. It reminds me of those bands. You know, I said original bands. It's like those bands that were always saying that they're anti-government, fuck the man, all these other like anti-establishment stuff, and then come to find out, a lot of these guys, given a chance or money or whatever they were potentially bargaining for, sold out to like all these people. Like it was so weird to me that a lot of these people that say they're anti this, anti that, leader, establishment, blah blah blah, were the very first defenders of these people constantly.
Oh yeah,
even though they say they're anti whatever. I'm like, you guys sure to defend these people a lot for someone that doesn't like them or doesn't like what they do. I noticed that a lot with like DC people. It's like, I noticed that a lot with like James Gunn people too. Apparently they don't like what Warner Brothers is doing, but they'll defend everything James Gunn does at every single step at every single step of the way possible. It's like, oh my God, what are you?
Well, and like a great case in point, and talking about bands specifically. So I was talking with a group of students. Yeah, was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday. And the kids were talking about all these bands from the 80s and 90s that they were listening to, mostly 90s. And I'm just like, oh, those are some good bands. And one girl was like, yeah, I love listening to Metallica. I'm like, that's for you, cool. I'm gonna boycott them continuously for the rest of my life. And they're like, what? Why? They're so awesome. I'm like, here's why. One word: Napster. And I broke it, and they're like, what do you mean? They like none of them have heard of Napster because they're too young. They have no idea what that's all about. I said, so let me break it down for you. And so I went into explaining how Sean Fanning built Napster and how the money he was making came from the advertisements he was getting asked to put up on his website, not from the sharing of the music, but from the advertisements. And I referenced an interview that Metallica did back in the 80s on MTV, and I'm sure you can find it somewhere floating around on the internet because everything's on the internet now. And once it goes up there, it's there forever.
Yeah.
Unless we have some like massive EMP that wipes out all of our technology. Fingers crossed that doesn't happen.
I don't know what those kids will do if they lost the internet.
Dude, they will lose their shit. But what ended up happening is in that interview, James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich went on the record saying, "We don't care how people get a hold of our music. Break into the record store, steal it if you have to. Whatever you do, get it out into the public so people listen to it." Fast forward to 2000, 2001, Sean Fanning's making, tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars because of Napster and the advertising that's going on. Like, this is like the first time advertisements on the internet are making a big splash. And the same two members of the band are the ones that brought the lawsuit against Napster and sued him into oblivion because they weren't getting their cut. The same two guys who said, "Steal our music if you have to," accused him of stealing their music and sharing it with the masses. The very thing that they instructed him to do in 1985, 86, and 87. So when I caught wind of that, I stopped listening to Metallica. I stopped, like, I play guitar. I had been learning how to do some riffs on my guitar. I stopped playing those riffs. Why? Because it was from my principles. Now, we just had a comment just a moment ago about Rage Against the Machine. Rage Against the Machine is one of those bands that, yes, ironically enough, sang against capitalism. Zach De La Rocha, sang against capitalism in pretty much every single song that he did. He was very Che Guevara-esque. Fine, cool, whatever. But the irony is that they were benefiting from capitalism. They weren't giving up the record contract anytime soon. They weren't going to give up on touring. However, Zach De La Rocha did. He has left the limelight, as far as I'm aware. He has retired out once the band, dispersed. Obviously, Tom Morello is still doing well. He's still, commercially making money and stuff like that. I don't know about the rest of the band, but Zach De La Rocha has pretty much pumped the brakes on everything. And so at least he's, sticking to his principles, and that's fine. But it's like, you can't sit there and decry, an economic structure that seems to work, and boost this economic structure that we have seen countless times not work, when you are yourself benefiting from the structure that you claim to hate. So, it's hypocrisy. My name is Rage Against the Machine.
That's the same thing. It was always me for like that and hip hop music. Like, hip hop music would be the same thing. It's like this type of music, even though I do like rap music to a certain extent. I like all music. I like just like, like you have movies where it's just like a score and you're just hearing the score. People always ask this, what's my favorite? Guys, I like all encompassing music. The only music that I really don't like, if I had to really put a genre stamp on it, I'm not really like a metal rock guy. It depends on the song. It really depends on the song. Metal rock would be something I really don't actually vibe with. But like, literally, I'll download video game scores I've listened to my entire life and just listen to that. My music doesn't have to have lyrics in it. It's one of those things where if I kind of vibe with the music and the song, I'm going to listen to it. But it was always weird. These people say they're anti-capitalism while simultaneously benefiting from people cutting the big checks that would be the beneficiary of capitalism. But last few things, man, before we head out here. First thing is, do you have anything planned coming up you would like to let the audience know about?
Yeah, I'm currently working on trying to get connected for a particular a local event in Visalia, California, called Books and Brews. I'm waiting to hear back from the organizers about whether or not they've accepted my application to be a vendor. If so, that's going to be coming up in the middle of May. Other than that, I support my local comic book shop on Free Comic Book Day, which is the first Saturday in May. This year it's going to be May 2nd.
I can't wait for that. Yeah, because
I love it because it's always a fun event. Our local shop, the guy who owns it, he's part of the local chapter of the 501st. So so we get Star Wars cosplayers out there every year. It's awesome.
If people don't actually know, that is essentially like Christmas for comic book shops, essentially.
Yeah, it is.
How do you think it's going to shape up now that Diamond is essentially not a distributor anymore. That's gonna be a
I
new
don't
look,
know.
actually.
I,
Yeah.
I, I really don't know, but it's going to be interesting to see how things play out from now on.
Yeah.
Uh, the other, I mean, aside from my books that are already out, so I do have my
Mhm.
5 books in my fantasy series, The Archives of Ran. Um, and I have another book out that came out a little over a year ago now called Midnight Playground. The background behind me. That's the image on the front cover. It's a collection of short stories ranging from 250 to 500 words, and then I have a section that's more like 2,500 to 4,500 words. And so as you progress through the book, the stories get a little bit longer. Um, and then and those stories are all different genres. So I've got some romantic comedy, I've got some ghost stories, I've got some sci-fi, action thriller. There's some Lovecraftian horror in there. I had a lot of fun. A lot of these were stories that I put together through various writing competitions I've been participating in over the last few years, and so that's how I got the name for the title. Because one of the competitions is called NYC Midnight, the other one's called Writers Playground. Um, and then I'm currently working on a new project that is completely outside of my usual comfort zone. It is a YA teen drama that's set in here in my hometown in Central California, and it is set in the year 1999, which was the year that I was a senior in high school, so 99 to 2000. And so the characters are all, to some extent, are based on people that I knew in high school, but they've been tweaked and modified, and I made some changes to the community and to the school and stuff like that. But I wanted this to be representative of the era that I grew up in, that I had my coming of age in, and so none of the characters are self inserts, but um I wanted to have these characters that were not in my usual realm of expertise. There's no magic, there's no sci-fi, there's no fantasy. It's very real life, and so it's about this group of characters that they're going through their senior year, and the challenges and the obstacles that they face, from like trying to figure out what they want to do after high school, to group dynamics changing, to inner uh, interpersonal relationships within the group.
Hmm. Oh, what about the content you have coming up with Feast of Phantoms? And you have your own YouTube channel as
Yeah,
well,
yeah, yeah.
right? Okay.
So I'll talk about Feast of Phantoms first, because I do a lot more with them. I mean, I do. It's kind of even across the board for both my channel and Feast of Phantoms, but I
Okay.
do far more content for them than I do for myself. So with Feast of Phantoms, tomorrow we have a brand new episode of War of the Stars. We're every Wednesday, and the episodes go out at 11 o'clock Central Standard Time. So 9 a.m. here, and what is it? Noon on the East Coast. So we have a new episode. We're talking about Darth Bane, who's a character that was originally featured in Legends. He established the rule of two, so why there's only two Sith. And it was really fun to have that conversation. We had a former co-host for the show join us, and I hope he'll be joining us a little bit more often. And then, as I mentioned earlier, in this episode, my co-host Janae and I have a new episode of Snackame, where we're talking about the show Freerin. So that's going to be on Friday. So War of the Stars on Wednesday, Snackame on Friday, and then of course, obviously, the Geek Gauntlet. I don't know if I'll be on the Geek Gauntlet this weekend, but we'll see. And then for my show on YouTube, The Right Way, I do have a new episode coming out on Saturday. It is we on that show I do book recommendations, author interviews, and creative writing tips. So to kind of give you guys a preview, I'm going to be talking about a book rec for an audiobook that I recently listened to that I like. It's actually a James Patterson one of those audio dramas. The interview that I have is with Winifred Summer. She's the author I mentioned, who's from back east and has been on the show a bunch of times. She's fantastic. I love her. She's the greatest. And then the writing tips are talking about. I've been focusing on folklore and mythology, and we're talking about how to incorporate leprechaun type characters into your writing, whether you're writing fantasy or you're writing some other genre. And so then I have another episode coming out in 2 weeks. Uh, excuse me. It's my spring preview, and that spring preview is going to feature um, all the authors that I have coming up because I'm doing an author interview marathon every week in April. So I've got 4 Saturdays to play with, 4 authors that I'm going to be introducing to viewers.
Hell yeah, man. It's great to have you on for the first time. Glad you got all this stuff going on. I will say, people, I know there's this thing in the author community we'll talk about the next time you're on, and that would just be a whole discussion in of itself, where it's like, I know a lot of people were bringing up, why don't bigger authors shut out little smaller guys? Guys, that's a conversation for a whole nother show. Because
yeah, it is.
Yeah, but I'll just give you a little tidbit here. People, let's just kind of say this. I'm not saying this is malicious, but this is how the game works. If you're at the top, you want to stay at the top, kind of siphoning people to other competition. I'll just point out, you would never see McDonald's Twitter account telling you to go check out Burger King.
No,
and ask yourself that why. Just in your mind, ask yourself that why. Shouldn't be that hard, right? You don't need a phone for that. Your brain should go, wait a minute. I doubt it will, because you guys need me to think for you these days. It's okay. Helping businesses that big don't help their competition. You're essentially helping your competition do that. Now, is that kind of nice to do? Yes and no, but it's also very thankless too, because people end up getting very jealous and envious and all that stuff. Essentially, it's one of those my way or the highways kind of things, and that's another discussion for another day. Good Lord. But oh God, authors annoy me on Twitter. Oh God. Oh God. And I get all the posts now, because since I talk about all these things now, my algorithm is curated to everything. I'm literally to everything in the universe now. I get all the opinions. Oh God. But yeah, man, it was great talking to you for the first time. Hopefully to have you on again, talk about your 6th book when that's out, and other movies and stuff that's in the world. So thank you guys for checking out this